or maybe we won't hear her voice. I just didn't hear it. So if anybody's having technical difficulties or can't see my screen, can't hear me, do just make a note in the chat if you would. But I think otherwise everything should be running as planned with this. So again, welcome everyone today to this informational webinar on the operating support grant program through the Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs with the City of Dubuque. I am Jenny Peterson Brandt, the Arts and Cultural Affairs Coordinator for the City of Dubuque, and the person that, if you have questions throughout this grant process, working towards the submission deadline, I'm the person that you'll want to reach out to and ask questions of. So thanks everybody for being here. I can switch to my next slide. Okay, perfect. So what we're going to be going over today with this webinar is we're going to do an overview of important dates related to this particular program, particular to the operating support program. In the past, when we've done these informational sessions, we've covered both the operating support and the special projects all in one. So if you are here today thinking you're going to be learning about the Special Projects Grant Program, I am not going to be covering that today. I'll be covering that on April 9th. Today is going to be focused on just on the operating support program so that we can hone in and really address questions related to that one. We'll also be going over the eligibility requirements for the operating support program. We'll talk about the funding guidelines related to that in terms of how much funding is available and what organizations are eligible for. We'll go through the rating criteria for the program, the application steps to applying for the grant, applying for the program online, what the review process looks like, and then just some tips, some helpful tips that I have at the very end, especially for those of you that might be new to this process. And then we'll open it up for, I'll unmute everybody at the end and open it up for questions that people may have. But again, do feel free to put questions in the chat as we go, and I'll either try to address them as we go along or might wait till the end, just in terms of staying on target and making sure I cover all the things that I wanted to cover for all of you today. So the purpose of the operating support program is for the City of Dubuque to offer limited, take that back, limited is a very key term here, limited but unrestricted support to arts and culture organizations who are operating within Dubuque city limits. And those organizations must demonstrate a commitment to serving the community by offering arts education, and cultural heritage programs. Through that support, the City of Dubuque hopes to increase the community's access to a wide range of diverse arts and culture experiences that will help to foster economic activity, promote citizen engagement, and cultivate an equitable community of choice. So important dates related to this program to know about. We released the materials for this program on March 5th, or March 15th, sorry, I didn't include that date on here. But the most important one probably to know about, besides being here for this webinar today, is that the deadline for those applications for operating support to be submitted is Monday, May 17th. Those applications are due at 11:59 p.m. that night and no later. The application portal is actually set up to turn off at that very time. So definitely you want to get in there, put in your information and submit that before that time so that you're not running up against the clock and any potential technical difficulties. That application process is all online, although you do have access to the questions and materials through Word documents and PDFs. So in advance of going to the online portal. I also did put on here that Tuesday, June 1st is the deadline for the special projects applications. We do like to stagger these deadlines so that people have time to complete one and then, shift their attention to the other if they want to be doing both grant applications. Then once we get the applications in, we take a little bit of time where we compile all of your applications and they get forward to a panel of reviewers who look through all the materials and score them based on the rubric that's provided to you and to them in advance. We give them about 3 to 4 weeks to do that process because it is a lot of information and a lot of reading to do and a lot of things to consider in scoring. And then once we get those scores back from the panelists, those scores are put together. I take those scores, put them together and rank them, present them to the Arts Commission, who then looks through them to draft a funding recommendation for the City Council, actually for the City Manager, and then for the City Council for final approval. And we expect that that process will happen in July, and that by the end of July, we'll be able to send out award notifications and release the contracts to any of our grant award winners. And then in August, once there'll be a little bit of time where we get the contracts to you at the end of July. We'll need to get those contracts back from you along with an invoice for your grant award amount. And then we submit those invoices for payment and for funding to be dispersed. There is, of course, a little bit of lag time between the invoices coming in and the funds going out, just simply based on the city's check payment schedule. So once we get the invoices and those get submitted, it's usually at least a 2-week, potentially up to 3 weeks before checks are cut and sent out to grantees. So many of you that I see who are attending the call, you've been through this before, and you know your organization is likely eligible to continue applying for this program. But just for any new folks that might be on the call, I did want to go over who is eligible for the operating support program. So you're eligible to apply if you are a Dubuque-based nonprofit whose primary mission is to provide the general public with programs or activities in the areas directly concerned with arts education, or cultural heritage. One stipulation within this is that you must, as an organization, have your own 501c3 designation, and you must have been operating as a 501c3 for at least 2 years before the application date. So if you're a brand new organization that just received 501c3 recognition this year, you will not be able to apply for 2 years from right now. In terms of people or entities that aren't eligible for the operating support program, those include for-profit organizations or businesses, nonprofits whose primary missions is more related to religion, politics, social service, or athletic activities, an organization that uses a fiscal agent or the nonprofit or federal tax exempt status of another organization, an educational institution including K-12 schools, universities, and community colleges, or an organization with an outstanding final report that's associated with a previous grant award from FY20 or prior. And that relates to final reports related to just the Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs. This doesn't, if you have funding from another department of the city of Dubuque, though outstanding final reports in those areas don't necessarily impact being able to apply for funding through this program. And for many of you, you might be wondering if you are if you're an FY21 operating support grantee, those reports aren't due until this coming August. And so we're relying on any final reporting that you would have had to submit for an FY20 funding cycle or prior to that. So in terms of the funding guidelines, organizations are eligible for a maximum of $30,000 or 6% of their operating budget. Last year, we awarded an average of 2.75% or 5% of the requested amount that organizations put forward. This year, we have available to us for the entire grant program $250,000 that was actually just approved this past Wednesday night by the City Council. And so that's the total amount of funding that we'll be working with. Related to that, those top numbers on this slide of the 30,000 or 6%, one of the things that the Commission worked towards doing this year was addressing the fact that many, if not all of you, are going to have a very, very different looking operating budget for this last completed fiscal year than you would have for any years prior, simply due to COVID-19. And so for FY22, what the Commission has decided to do is to base that award amount, again, of up to $30,000 or 6% of your operating budget, that the number that we're going to be looking at to base that percentage on is going to be an average of your 2 completed fiscal cycles of operating expenses prior to March 17th, 2020. And I have later on in a slide, I have exact dates of that most of you are going to fall into that. So we're going to be asking you to basically report the finances that you reported to us for last year's funding, the funding the year prior to that, take those 2 numbers and average them. We're also going to be asking you to report this last completed fiscal year simply to get a gauge of what the landscape really looks like and how much revenues are down for all of you. So the fiscal worksheet does look more complicated and more cumbersome, but really the first 2 columns in that financial worksheet is going to be numbers that you've already reported to us in the past, and you're just going to be referring back to and pulling those numbers back in addition to the normal new numbers that we would have been asking to look at for this process. So in terms of the rating criteria, the Commission has also worked to simplify and to keep the rating to have a much more balanced approach to how the rating and the point system is for the operating support program. So for any of you that have applied in the past, this pie chart had more chunks of the pie to it. So we've combined a couple things this year to give things the equal weight that they deserve, and to fine tune some of our questions so that we're really getting from you the picture of your organization that we want to be looking at. So equally weighted in this year's application process are going to be 5 main questions. One of those questions is going to be related to it's going to take all into account the management structure of your organization, the fiscal health of your organization, not pre-COVID fiscal health of your organization, and your long-term planning efforts. So that's kind of one big question this year, along with considering the budget pieces that you'll be adding in your application all go into that chunk of the pie. The next question that you'll be answering relates to how you as an organization excel at demonstrating cultural leadership in the community, and what evidence do you have on a positive community impact from the work of your organization. The next question that is part of the application has to do with talking about your past and future planned activity timeline. So there's also in this question on the application, we changed this up a little bit this year because knowing that many of your past plans were canceled due to COVID-19, we have asked you to talk about what those plans were, to talk about what your future plans are, and then within that to discuss any shifts, appropriations, and innovations that you had to enact during the pandemic. So maybe even though all of your plans that you had put forward didn't pan out, we want to hear from you. How did you shift and pivot to continue impacting the community? And if you weren't able to shift and pivot and continue to continue putting forward public programming, we do want to hear from you anything that you were able to do. If your programs were fully interrupted, we want to hear from you to outline any of the behind the scenes capacity building work that you did to keep your organization going throughout COVID-19. So we want to hear about that and that question. The fourth question that we'll be asking of you is to talk about your DEI professional development learning and any ways that you've implemented that DEI learning into the operations of your organization, the way that you present programs, the way that you outreach to the community. This is the question that allows you to share that story with us. And then the final question is related to telling us how your organization and the programs that you offer align with and advance the goals and priorities of the city's Arts and Culture Master Plan. So we recognize that the question regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion is somewhat newer to the grant application process. And we really want to emphasize in this question that the reason for this question existing is because the city of Dubuque strives to be an equitable community of choice and wants to be supporting organizations that advance that goal. Within that context, if you are an organization that's applying for and receiving operating support funds, we expect you as a grantee to be identifying and participating in professional development opportunities that are focused on diversity, equity, inclusion practices. And within that, I do want to comment that that is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all, because all of you are such different organizations of different sizes, with different structures, with different staffing capacity. And this is really an opportunity for you as organizations to be examining what you have the capacity to be doing, finding opportunities that are right-sized for your organization, and then finding ways to incorporate those DEI practices into what you do and how you connect with the community. And so this is a place for, I know in the past there has been a mandate for all organizations to participate in the same Inclusive Dubuque training program. We really want to move away from that one-size-fits-all approach, and for all of you to be determining what are the places of diversity, equity, and inclusion work where you want to be focusing, telling us about those opportunities that you're pursuing, and then telling us about the ways that you are incorporating that back into what your organization does and how it impacts the community. So in terms of submitting an application, just a few notes to pay close attention to is that, one, applications must be submitted online. It's been this way for quite a while, but just a reminder that that's how we continue to do that. Question or answers are limited within the application form to a specific character count, and that those character counts that are noted throughout the application do include the spaces. So one of the tools that we provide to you on the website is a downloadable Word document of all of these application questions. So you can download that Word doc, uh, work within that, use the tools option within Microsoft Word to check your character count, see where you are in terms of that 3,000 number, and be able to copy and paste over into the electronic form. You can save your application and return to it throughout the process. And there is one thing I'll note when I go through the slides of the application, that the one small thing with our form center from the city is that when you save a form, it doesn't let you save the uploads. So you do want to wait till the end of your application to attach your final uploads. So don't worry about that sort of as you're going along. Wait till the end until you're ready to do the final submission to attach those and upload them. And just a reminder to attach only the requested documents. If there's others that are there, I'll just be getting rid of them. It won't be submitting them to the panelists for review. And then also to determine early if you have any trouble filling out the form, and I'm happy to help as best that I can. I've also provided in these slides later the email for Kelly Buchanow, who is the communication specialist with the city's public information office and the main admin for our Civic Plus form centers. And she's the one that if you're having problems logging into the form or something like that, an actual like technical glitch with the form center, she can better help you than I can. So I've provided her email a little later on. Once you're ready to submit, at the end of the form, there is an option to select and save a copy of your form for your records. I highly recommend that you do that. And just a reminder that it is the applying organization and not city staff who is solely responsible for the content of your application. We don't accept any changes or additions after the application is submitted, and the deadlines are strictly enforced. Most simply through the process that they turn off this form will turn off at 11:59 p.m. on May 17th, and you won't be able to access it anymore. And again, don't be afraid to contact me with questions, either whether that's via email or via phone, but don't wait until the 11th hour to do so, because I might not be able to get back to you. So just to walk all of you through what accessing the online form and applying online looks like, I've taken some screenshots of our website and the form centers, so I can just kind of step-by-step walk you through all of that. So you're going to start by either going to the main cityofdubuque.org website, or you can shortcut and go to cityofdubuque.org/arts and culture. That'll take you right to the main arts and culture landing page. If you start at the City of Dubuque's page, the best place to start is to click on the Doing Business tab at the very top. And under that, there's going to be an arts and culture link under the Learn About Dubuque section, and that'll take you to that main arts and culture landing page. Then that'll take you here, where off to the left-hand side, there's a series of navigation tabs, and you'll want to go under Funding Programs, and under that, there's a separate page for Operating Support, Special Projects, and then some other tabs related to our funding programs. So you would want to click on the Operating Support Grant link there, which will then pop you over to this page where you will see a lot of the general information about the program, along with links to the guidelines and rubric, the application questions, which are available both as a PDF or as a Word document. Again, the Word document is provided simply as a tool for you to work on your applications and then copy and paste over into the online form. There's a link to the budget worksheet, which you'll need to complete and save as a PDF and upload to your application, and then of course the link to the Form Center online application form. When you click on that online application form, the next thing that you're going to see is a screen that looks something like this. This is a little cropped in from what you'll see on your computer screen, but this is the basic gist of it. You'll want to start by either signing in up here on the left-hand side, and if you don't already have an account created, it will let you create an account there. Or if you know you have an account, you can also just sign in on the right here at this sign in to save progress button. If you think you have an account, but you're not able to access it, again, the person that I mentioned, Kelly Buchanow, who's in the Public Information Office for the City of Dubuque, she can help you navigate that and locate an old account that maybe you thought you set one up with your email. You can't remember the password. You're not getting a password reset. She is the master of all the Civic Plus accounts and can look people up by their email on the back end of the website. So her email is a good one to know and to jot down and have handy in case you have any of those technical issues accessing the online form. When you click on that link to go over and either sign in or create an account, this is what you're going to see for signing in. If you've already started an application and you don't want to go through those first few steps that we had here of going to the Arts and Culture page, clicking on the online form link, you can also just start at www.cityofdubuque.org/myaccount, where that will allow you to sign in. And once you sign in, it will show you any existing forms that you've saved in progress. And it will also allow you to see any submitted forms that are that you've previously submitted through this particular account. So if you know that you're the person with your organization who has submitted all of any past arts and cultural affairs grant applications, this is a place that you would want to start in terms of accessing those old applications if you're not able to find them in a previous email or in your file somewhere. So that's another good website to know and to start from. So once you're logged in, just a reminder here to save your progress and return to your application form. Again, that those attachments are not going to save until you're ready to for the final submission part. That the attachments don't save from session to session. And the way that we have the application broken down is the same that we have it in the Word document and the PDF online, is that there's a section that asks for your contact information, your proposal narrative, which is where we ask those questions that are part of the rating criteria, asking for those financial summary pieces, and then there's some additional required attachments related to sharing evidence of your 501c3 designation, a document of who your current staff and board is. I believe we also ask for your articles of incorporation, and I think there's one other thing that is not coming to me front of mind right now, but I believe there's 4 different attachments that we ask for. And then the final section of that form is just assurances that you're saying, yes, I'm authorized to submit this. Yes, I agree everything in this application is true to the best of my knowledge. You'll add a name and a date of who's submitting the form, and then that'll be the last thing and then you hit submit, and voila, you're all done. But the next a couple things that I wanted to share with you is last year, the commission, we had made an effort to make sure that our application process was aligned with the Arts and Culture Master Plan. Prior to last year's cycle, it had still been attached to an outdated City of Dubuque comprehensive plan. because the city's current arts and culture master plan is more robust in terms of specific arts and culture goals and priorities and strategies, that is what these applications now link to in terms of asking how you're aligned with that work. And last year, if you remember, we possibly made all of you scratch your heads and swear a little bit because we had this system of notation of abbreviations to identify a shorthand that we had created to identify these particular strategies within your narrative. And what we've done this year instead is to simply provide you with a checklist for of all of that includes the 4 main priorities and then the main strategies that are associated with those priorities. And you can check as many of these that apply to the main mission and vision of your organization. And then there'll be a block where you can expand upon how your organization is actually doing that work. So you won't have to go through the process of creating that shorthand, tying it into the narrative. You can simply check these strategies that most align with your work and then talk about how your organization is aligning with those. On the financial summary part of the application process, I just wanted to point out that there is the template that you'll want to download. You can get this earlier on in the process directly from the operating support website page. There's a link to this as well, but you can also access it here and download it while you're working in the application form if you would like to. There's an opportunity to tell us if you're working on a calendar or a fiscal year, and if working on a fiscal year, behind this orange box, there is a spot for you to tell us the beginning and ending dates of your fiscal year. And then we also ask you for a current balance sheet and a profit and loss statement of activities from your most recently completed fiscal year. Again, these are items just to help us verify that what you're putting on that financial worksheet is accurate and true. We do not judge and the panelists do not judge the state of your current balance sheet or the state of your profit and loss statement. They're simply there for reference and backup documentation. So again, that financial worksheet is going to look a little different this year because we've added columns to it. But the first 2 columns, like I said, is information that you've already reported to us in previous operating support grant funding cycles. So this first column, which is going to be 2 years prior to COVID taking effect, for most of you in that column, you're going to be telling us either that for most of you, that's either going to be a July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, or if you're on a calendar year, it's going to be January 1, 2018 to December 30th, 2018. If you're on a fiscal, for the second year, or sorry, for the second column, which is 1 year prior to COVID completed, for those of you that are on the most likely fiscal cycle, you're going to be reporting July 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. And if you operate on a calendar year, you'll be reporting January 1, 2019 to December 31, 2019. And what we'll be doing with those numbers is down here this is a blow up of the form. We're down here, it's automatically going to tally all of those expenses for those 2 years here, and then in the next column to the right, and then automatically average those two to give us the number that we want to see for your organizational operating budget to base awards on for this coming year. Again, we are still going to ask you to report your new numbers of this most recently completed fiscal year, just so that we can see and get an understanding of what's happening in the sector, and then providing information regarding your current fiscal year budget that you're working within and where you are year to date. Again, these last 3 columns are not going to impact your awards. It's just information that we want to know so that we can best anticipate and understand where everybody's at, and so that we as a commission can plan our work, and we can also get an understanding of what we might need to be doing on a city budget funding side of things to anticipate what's going on in the field, in terms of growth or gaps that exist. So again, this was the next stage of the application is the additional required attachments, many of those which I just mentioned before, which was your 501c3 status, your list of current paid staff. If you don't have any current paid staff, you can simply just attach a page that says that you don't have any paid staff. Sharing with us your articles of incorporation, a list of your current board members, and then we do ask for you to share with us your current strategic plan or documentation related to long-range planning efforts. Within that, if you're, this is one area where it's super, super helpful if you label your documents as the following, with the name of your organization and then an underscore and then the document content. So for instance, if I were going to be submitting a city staff list for the list of current paid staff under this item right here, I would title that document city underscore staff list. That's just a huge help for us on our end as we organize all of these documents and information for our panelists. If everyone can have a consistent file naming for all of their files when we download them from the website, it just keeps everything much easier. But if you mess that up, I've got your back, and I change the names of them so that they're all consistent for the panelists. So you're just doing me a big, huge favor if you already do that. And then the final page is those assurances up above that you'll just check all of them, enter the name of your whoever's submitting the whoever is authorized to submit the application on behalf of your organization. Their name goes in here along with the date. My information is here in case you need to reach out to me at any point at the end of your application. And then again, this is that spot where you want to check that box to receive an email copy of your form, and then make sure to enter your email here so that it goes to you. And then you hit submit. I believe it does bring up one of these reCAPTCHA things where when I tried this out today, I had to find all of the chimneys or all of the photos with chimneys in them. It's one of those sort of reCAPTCHAs. So it'll ask you to do that before you actually are able to submit the form. And then once you've submitted, you should see this screen. The photo might be different because these rotate based on the city, how the city's website's set up. But today I got the rainbow one when I did mine. And it'll just tell you that your grant application has been successfully submitted. And again, my contact information if you need to get a hold of me for any reason. So in terms of the review process, after you hit submit, this is everything that happens on our end. So the staff, meaning myself and my wonderful intern that I have this semester, Annie, the two of us will be working on receiving all of those applications and compiling the submissions for the review panel. We'll check all the documents just to make sure that you've attached what we asked you to attach, and then we'll stay in touch with you and provide you with updates throughout the process and contact you if we need anything further. Once we have all those in hand, once the deadline comes to pass, then we forward those applications on to a review panel. Typically, we have a review panel of 3 individuals who are typically come from the nonprofit sector, but are not directly related to any one of the organizations that is applying for grant funding. We often try to find people who are experienced in the grant writing world and have them review applications. We also like to work with people who are relatively local so that they have some familiarity with the organizations applying and the programs and events that you might all be referring to in your application. Since since there is that character count limit, you don't have the opportunity to go on and on and on about what you do. So sometimes it's helpful for us to work with people who have some knowledge of the community of Dubuque and the community's needs. And once the review panel has gone through all of that, which again, we usually give them about 3 to 4 weeks to go through all of that, they submit final scores to myself, and then I put those into a ranking sheet and forward the scores anonymously to the commission. So the commission is simply seeing operating budgets and rankings, not seeing the names of the organizations. The commission receives those rankings and that scoring, and then determines the funding levels based on allocating and divvying up that pot of $250,000 that they have to work with. Once we have that recommendation, it goes on to the city manager and city council, who reviews and approves that. They do have the opportunity, if for some reason they want to adjust an award, they have the ability to do that. They are the final say in what those award amounts and who receives funding. And then their approval of that recommendation comes back to me, and then I do the work. Well, myself and Annie will be helping. Well, I might not have Annie by summer. I'm really hoping I do, but I might not. But whoever is my intern, myself and them will work on drafting and distributing the contracts, receive the contracts back from you and forward them on to the city manager for execution of those contracts. And then we'll also receive your invoices and forward those on for distribution of the awards, and then we'll handle any public relations, usually in the sense of press releases and announcements on the website related to who received funding from the city of Dubuque through that program. So a few helpful tips just to, these are just sort of general good grant writing practices, but to review and to prepare your application materials early, to use the provided work doc to be able to draft your responses to the narrative questions and use that to copy and paste into the online form. I personally find in a grant writing world that tends to work much better, and I don't end up cursing a lost internet connection while I'm in the middle of a form somewhere, but I have it on that Word doc to always go back to and pull from and revisit. Just to remember that, again, that character count that's noted throughout the questions in the application does include that if it says 3,000 characters, that means that's letters, numbers, and the spaces that are put into that block. To really keep your community outcomes and the impact and the why of your mission and activities front and center. It's just, again, as a grant writing tip, to really keep your impact on the community first and foremost, as opposed to the nuts and bolts, what you do. The why is really the most important part of what you're telling us about. And then to just feel free to reach out as you have questions. And so the final slide here is just my contact information. You can reach me via email. The first number on here is my work cell phone. The second phone number is the office phone. I'm continuing to work from home for I'm not sure how long, so definitely the work cell phone is best to get a hold of me, that first number there. You can also reach out to Annie, who is the Arts and Cultural Affairs intern. She has an email there. If you're not able to get a hold of me, she can always relay a message and forward it on. And then again, Kelly Buchanow, who's the communications specialist with the Public Information Office, for any really technical glitch questions, access to your Forum Center account, things like that. She's the person that can help you with those more technical pieces of things than what I can. So with that, I think I will stop sharing my screen and turn on my webcam. No, I just shared my screen again. Sorry about that. And if I open up attendees, I think I can unmute all of you. Maybe. Let me do that. Okay, I think you might be able to unmute. You should be able to unmute yourselves now, or if you want to put any questions in the chat. Oh, it looks like Mickey added a couple questions here in the question part. So there's two places on here. So one of Mickey's questions, Mickey Robinson's questions, was, am I thinking that awards will be dispersed all at once or might be quarterly again this year? All signs are leading to they should be dispersed all at once. To be honest, there hasn't been conversation about that, but the quarterly process this year was just a reaction to COVID-19, and things are going definitely more back to normal. So I don't see that continuing, because we don't feel that there's going to be a need to review the city's financial status on a quarterly basis as we did this past year. And then Mickey had another question regarding the strategies from the Arts and Cultural Master Plan that your organization is most actively advancing. And her question was, does this mean you no longer want us to comment on all of the pieces we work on, or just a few? Do you have a maximum number in mind? I do not have a maximum number in mind. I think what I would suggest is really, this is an opportunity for, if your organization's work is most strongly aligned with a single priority, and that is where your focus is. I guess I would just say it's not a numbers game. It's just a, how strong is your what evidence and narrative, what is the story that you're able to tell in terms of that work that you're doing. And then Jeff McFarland with the Colts had a question of, is current balance sheet the date the application is submitted, or the closing date of the recently completed fiscal year, which would align with the profit and loss statement? The current balance sheet is meant to be at the date of application, Jeff. And it sounds like somebody's unmuted if you have a question. It's so hard to tell. Does anyone else have any questions? Well, if there's no other questions, I think I will just say thank you to all of you for joining in this today. This is all brand new, doing this informational webinar via virtual instead of seeing you all in person in a little room at the MFC. But it does provide us a nice opportunity to record it so that you can access it later, share it with other folks in your organization that might be helping you to work on these grants. And for anybody who wasn't able to join us today. And again, if a question comes up after this session, do feel free to just reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to answer those questions. A couple of things before I let you go that I did just want to remind you all of. One is that the special projects informational webinar will be coming up on April 9th at this same time through the same process of registering online with the GoToWebinar, and you'll get a link for that and be able to attend the same way. Also wanted to remind you, for any of you that have been looking at and are eligible for that shuttered venues operators program. I feel like I see it every day and I still can't get the name right, but I think that's it. That is a program through the Federal Small Business Association. Definitely take a look at that. The application for that opens on April 8th. So right now there is a lot of information available on the SBA's website in terms of questions related to the eligibility, the materials that they're going to ask for related to that program, and how that program is structured. So take a look at that. And then also just a reminder that the Iowa Arts Council still has their resiliency grants for nonprofits are open through May 3rd. And that's another great opportunity to utilize some additional state funding to help your organization. They've really, I think, done a really great job with that program and making it incredibly flexible in terms of the grant really asks you to propose a project, but that project can be related to the operational stability of your organization, or it can be related to programming or helping you to infuse more upgraded technology into in terms of how you're delivering your program. So definitely take a look at that program again through the Iowa Arts Council, and those are open. That application process is open through May 3rd. And I think that's all the ones that I have right now for you. So, and a quick note in regard back to the shuttered venue operators program, there is a webinar next Tuesday, March 30th. And I forwarded out information on that, but I just got another email regarding that and some updates to the deadlines regarding PPP stuff from the Iowa Arts Council that I'll be forwarding out to all of you, just as another hey, the more you know, don't miss this information sort of a thing. So thanks to all of you and to all of the work that you do and the efforts and energy of your organizations. We just appreciate you being partners in our work here at the City of Dubuque, and look forward to your applications for the operating support program. So thanks very much, everybody. And again, contact me if you have any other questions after this. Thanks.